Welcome back to Backward Point Podcast. My name is Nazar Sayed, and with me, Bashar Sayed is not here. This is a solo podcast. It is my privilege and my honor to sit here and talk about one of the most emphatic wins in Pakistan cricket history in a very long time. One of the most beautiful moments that I've witnessed in a very long time when it comes to Pakistan cricket. The fact that Pakistan has beaten the mighty world champions, incumbent world champions, Australia at home after 22 years. They beat Australia 2-1 in an ODI series with 3 T20Is left to go, but we're going to stick with the ODIs right now. And man, it's just one of those things where I'm shocked that I'm sitting here and able to do this podcast. I'm very excited. It's going to be a solo podcast. It's going to be me rambling on for as long as I can. So bear with me. If that's something that interests you, stick along and join me in this ride where I try to make sense of this all, because I too am figuring the words and figuring phrases and trying to be present in the moment to understand exactly what has transpired. And this might be the podcast that we figure it all out. One thing's for sure, this is something I held off in the previous podcast where Rashad was here. I wanted to say from the bottom of my chest, actually, from the top of my lungs, bottom of my chest, I wanted to say, we're back, baby. And I held it off until this series went. And you know what? We're back. Pakistan cricket is back. Pakistan cricket is here to finally move the needle forward, move modernity into Pakistan cricket, and make a stance in the world stage of cricket. There's lots to talk about, but when we speak about cricket, when we speak about home of cricket, we have to speak about Yashi Sports. Yashi Sports is the home of cricket in Canada. If you guys have your cricketing needs and you need them to be met, you need to talk to people about expert cricket advice, you know where to go. You go to shayashi.com and you check out their stuff and you let us know if it's worth it, because we have a code especially for you guys called BP10, and you guys can put that in and get 10% off of all their services, and you can thank us later. Yashi Sports, thank you very much for sponsoring this podcast and many before and many after. They're a wonderful bunch of people and they really help cricket in this part of the world. So thank you for your services, Yashi Sports. Moving to the business of exactly what happened, I have the stats open here. I have notes here. I'm going to do my best to translate and make the most of this. Let's start with the past first. Let's start with Pakistan's tour of Australia in 2002. I think that's a very good point, a good reference point to basically understand where we're at today. Pakistan toured Australia in 2002. That was the last time they won a series in Australia. They played 3 games. The first game was in Melbourne. The second game was also in Melbourne. And the third game was in Brisbane at the Gabba, I believe. And lo and behold, the fast bowlers rescued Pakistan in that series as well. Shoaib Akhtar came in the second and third ODIs, and he took 7 wickets at an average of 7.85, which is ridiculous. He took a 5-for at the Gabba, which sealed the deal for Pakistan and made sure that Pakistan had their first series win in a very long time in Australia as well. I think Waqar Younis was captain at the time. I'm going to double check this here. And Yunus Khan had contributions. You had Imran Nazir as the highest scorer for Pakistan. And it was one of those things where I couldn't believe that it had taken Pakistan that long to come back from that. Pakistan's bowling attack in that series was such. We had Wasim, Waqar, Shoaib Akhtar, Azhar Mahmood, and Shahid Afridi as your bowlers. Similar bowling lineup that Pakistan took in this series. They had 4 premier fast bowlers. Who were the spinners? One would argue that Saim Ayub and Salman Yaga would probably had been asked to come up and share the duties of a part-time spinner. And we'll talk about that, how that was not necessary, and how the way that Rizwan sort of carried the team, that necessity was sort of squashed, and the need of bringing a 4th and 5th bowler, a spinning option, 5th and 6th bowler, was not needed. And some would call it a stroke of brilliance. Some would call it luck. Some would call it just passion and, resilience against the fact that we're going to go out there and take 10 wickets. I think, it might be an amalgamation of all those things. And when it comes to Rizwan and his captaincy, he's so new at the game that he's willing to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And honestly, breath of fresh air in Pakistan cricket. We've had captains in the past that stick to a rote script that they've learned from the dressing room, and that's what they want to apply, regardless of what the situation demands. There might be moments in Pakistan cricket in the past few months, past few years, where they had the opportunity to book the team for a very low score, but that was not the case. The captain and the team let them score an extra 58, 80, sometimes 100 runs. And then, those runs came back to bite them. That's not only subject to Babar. I'm not throwing shade only at Babar. Me and Bashar were actually live present at the New Zealand versus Pakistan game in the 2019 World Cup. And Sarfraz did something very similar as well. I think he had them down 5 or 6 for 70 or 80 odd. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but they're very early in their innings and they had lost a lot of wickets. And still, Safi was let them score those extra 100 runs that came back to bite them. But Babar Azam in that moment stood up and showed them how it was done. Carried on that legacy, Babar Azam, when it came to captaincy. There was many moments I can remember where he had the opportunity to book the opposition down, but that was not the case. So this little Mohammad Rizwan stint coming out and making sure that even if he only uses 4 bowlers, and he kind of got close in the third ODI where, the 8th and 9th wicket were kind of staying along, chugging along, and the overs were, you were near the tail end of some of the overs for some of the bowlers. But the way that Pakistan bowled, basically just bowled Australia out at home. Moving on to the 2024 series that just commenced. Man, I don't even know where to begin. Pakistan, in context, you have to realize how important this series win is. Pakistan lost to Bangladesh at home 2-0 in test matches mere 6 weeks ago. Pakistan dropped their star bowler, Shaheen Afridi, Naseem Shah, and then their star batsman, Babar Azam, in the second and third test matches against England at home. Somehow, some way, the tide shifted right there. Change of management, Aqib comes in, Alimdar comes in, a flee of resignations happened. We thought that, Gillespie was going to be the one to go right after, but he actually took over the mantle, which was a very interesting call on his part. He said actually on the comms many a times actually during this series that he doesn't see himself coaching Pakistan white ball in the future. It's just this one-off thing. He was lucky that the series was happening in Australia near his home, so he was able to turn up and give his time. But the long-term message is that he's not going to be there for Pakistan white ball in the future. He says it's for like family reasons, and he wants to spend time with his family. That may be true. I'm not saying that Gillespie's a liar or anything. I'm just thinking that there might be more to that decision apart from just family duties, and I respect that. I totally get it. So when it comes to the series, they have a new white ball captain in Mohammad Rizwan. Babar Azam has resigned for the second time, and the hopes are not high, man. Like, even though England was swapped, it was quite easily swapped out, actually, I should say that, in the 2-1 series that Pakistan won, the morale was still very low, especially when it came to white ball. The last white ball memory that the Pakistan cricket team and the Pakistan cricket fans had was the disastrous 2023 World Cup, where Pakistan was playing in India, and they were just not up to the mark in any of the games. The ones that they won, they should have won anyway, so that wasn't really a surprise, apart from, I would say, that New Zealand game, which was just a howler. Fakhar Zaman, just the greatest. And Babar Azam actually gave him a really good hand there as well. But all the other games that they should have won, the one against Afghanistan, they should have won, they underscored. The ones against South Africa, they should have won again, they underscored. But, the bowling sort of brought them back. The last wicket, the last LBW, you know what I'm talking about. Could have gone either way, but just didn't go Pakistan's way. Pakistan were knocked out. That was the last memory that Pakistan cricket fans had. And that's what they had to deal with when they came to this series. The last time Pakistan played here in Australia, MCG 2022, that was the first game in the series. People remember what Virat Kohli did to Raufs and Shaheen Afridi. And that was very prevalent for a lot of cricket fans. A lot of the discourse was revolving around how that trauma might still be inflicted upon fans and upon the team members. And when Pakistan came out to play the first ODI, that was not the case. That was not the team that we saw. They were not under pressure, maybe a bit nervous, but everybody has jitters when they're coming to Australia. And they kind of, if they had scored maybe 20 odd runs more, they kind of had Australia's, confidence rattled, and they had them in a corner. Australia won that game 204 for 8, chasing 203. they had 2 wickets left, and maybe a few more catches, maybe a change in line. Uh, Pakistan could have sealed the deal, and we would have been talking about a clean sweep here, but not to be. I think that's good for Pakistan cricket, just to stay humble. But the seedlings of this reformed Pakistan team were sown in that game, and if you look back and you realize that a lot of the confidence building happened during that first MCG game, the second and third results don't come that much of a shocker to you. The second ODI happens. Pakistan wins the toss. They bowl first. They book Australia out for 163. That's insane. Pakistan took 27 wickets in this whole run. 27 wickets they took in this series. And if you were to tell me that this fast bowling battery that had been quite literally battered all over the world, confidence is low, lots of criticism to your star players, just, a couple of them being dropped recently in a test series, they would come back and take 26 wickets. Wow. I mean, wow is the only adjective that comes to mind straight up. Insane. A masterclass clinic of fast bowling by Mohammad Haris. Sorry, by Haris Rauf. Mohammad Haris is always in my head. Haris Rauf, just masterclass clinic of fast bowling. He came in, he had a purpose, he wanted to make a statement, and he did. There's nothing wrong with that. And what he learned, I believe, was bowling in the channel. He was just disciplined and fast and aggressive, and he wanted to take wickets. And Rizwan gave him that opportunity to take wickets. One thing that we've mentioned many a times before has been, sorry, my wife's calling. One thing we mentioned many a times before has been how difficult it's been using Haris Rauf in previous captaincy eras, previous captaincy administrations. And when it came to just cleaning up the tail, you would probably use Haris Rauf, but that was not his 100% usage. You wanted to use him in other scenarios. And the way you did that, the way that Rizwan did that was just don't bowl him on the power play. Mazhar Arshad came out and actually echoed that sentiment. I tweeted that from the Backward Point account a few days ago. Got a lot of hate, part and parcel of the game, so I don't really get really phased about that. But I was just glad that Mazhar Arshad actually, came out and said something very similar with numbers and stats, obviously, to back it up. That whenever Haris Rauf bowled in the power play, he was just abysmal. And the fact that Rizwan noticed that, chose him to bowl him after the power play, a ball a bit older, easier to control. Haris Rauf was just unstoppable. He has been, I don't want to say like he has been a revelation, because he's been on the scene for Pakistan cricket for a very long time. And he's had glimpses of this before many a times. It was just that it just came down to users, right? It just came down to what the captain demanded and what results were given to him. Haris Rauf will go down in history for Pakistan cricket as one of the great fast bowlers. I genuinely think this, not only because of this series, but if you compare and contrast with the series that we started off with, the one in 2002, Shoaib Akhtar has become a legend in Pakistan cricket. He doesn't have a lot of trophies to show for Pakistan, but the fact that he brought a change of mindset in Pakistan fast bowling and sort of continued the legacy of Waqar and Wasim, that was beautiful to see. For some reason, we didn't really have the successor of Shoaib Akhtar in Pakistan cricket for a very long time. We thought it was going to be Mohammad Amir, and Mohammad Amir really wanted to be that person until he made a few mistakes, grave errors, and that cost him a lot of time in between. And I call it the dark period of Pakistan cricket, where fast bowling was just not a thing, and Misbah relied on his spinners and dusty tracks in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. That's where we were playing. So the point was where we thought that we had lost hope in fast bowling when Shaheen and Naseem came and then got injured. We thought it was over. Haris Rauf comes back and makes a statement. Now, when a fast bowler like that performs to the best of their abilities, it's a rising tide. It lifts all ships. Shaheen Afridi has been not only the most improved bowler since a very long time, but a catalyst to Pakistan's win in this series. Mohammad Rizwan may admit this or not. Haris Rauf will definitely admit this. But Haris Rauf doesn't take those wickets if Shaheen doesn't give those breakthroughs up front and, stalls the runs, does not let the runs leak. His average is insane in this series. If I were to pick it up, if I were to tell you that his average in the 3 innings, he took 8 wickets, 12.62. His economy is hovering in the 3.5 to 4 range, maybe even lower. And he is the reason that Haris Rauf and Naseem Shah were able to pick up those wickets that they were, because Shaheen just had them in a chokehold. He was reversing it. He was not reversing it. He was bringing it back. He was taking it away. Same angle, wrist locked. Just vintage Shaheen. I just want to make sure that I'm careful with words here, just because vintage Shaheen does not just mean that he's coming out and bowling at 148. Definitely the pace was a factor, but if you're bowling the way that you're bowling, if you're bowling the way that Shaheen is bowling, then the pace can be neglected a little bit. Always an asset, but hit the right lengths, hit the deck hard, swing it both ways, keep your wrist cocked, make sure the seam position is accurate. You bring it away, you take it in, you're going to take wickets. And Shaheen Shah Afridi, for some reason, for the very long time of 24 months almost, since 2022, seemed like he had lost that art, looked like a shell of himself, especially in that 2023 World Cup. It was not cooking for him. And he gave opportunities, like commentators like Ravi Shastri, to come out on air and say, he's no Wasim Akram. He's not the guy. He's not the prince that was promised for the swing attack in Pakistan left arm history. He's just an ordinary guy. And those words, however scathing they may feel at the moment, I think he's put those negotiations to rest at the moment. He's brought back his game, obviously still clocking in only in the low 130s, which is fine when you're taking wickets at the averages that you're taking them. He took 8 wickets at an average of 12.62 in the 3 innings. And then Haris Rauf took 10 wickets at an average of 12. Yeah, at one point had an average of 11. Honestly, it was insane numbers. And Naseem Shah and Hasnain were good company. Now Hasnain, I want to give a little bit more nuance to, because I tweeted about this too. In the fury of what Haris, Naseem, and Shaheen were able to do, Hasnain sort of goes under the radar because he was inconspicuous in the way that he was bowling. He wasn't loud. He wasn't very show-offy or shiny, but he was doing the job arguably the best. He was hitting the right lengths. He was challenging the batsman. He wasn't really giving a lot of room. He was, negotiably slower than he was when he bowled in here in the BBL last time, when he was actually reported for chucking. But he bowled with such confidence from a guy who was making a comeback in the Pakistan team that it made me really happy that was the sort of fight that Pakistan was ready to put, and that the likes of Hasnain were ready to put. He might go under the radar, and he already has. People are not talking about him as much as they should. But for me, his contributions were immense. He came out and bowled as hard as he could, as best as he could. He had a few drop chances, a few finicky leg before decisions that I still don't get. The Steve Smith one comes to mind immediately. And, a few hard calls by the umpires in the wide department as well. I would agree with that. And he just made sure that he showed up for Pakistan. And that's what I will say about this bowling contingent that Pakistan took. They showed up. Fielding in Pakistan was not the best, but there was enough. It was good enough. They were taking their catches when they needed to be. Speaking of fielding, a revelation for me, we already knew that Salman Liaga was a great slip fielder, really quick reflexes. Bashar and I actually had the opportunity to see that firsthand when we were at the practice camp in Islamabad United. We saw him take some blinders behind the nets. But Saim Ayub at backward point. What are you going to say? That Glenn Maxwell catch in the third ODI was the way he caught it and just coolly, cold-bloodedly just dropped the ball and walked straight to Rizwan. That just shows me that person that's his field position. And his reflexes are that quick. And it just made me happy. Like Saim Ayub, I've said many times before, I feel like he's a surrogate for me and Bashar with the Karachi agenda, like running high. He's our link straight into the Pakistan cricket team. He's one of us. And the fact that he is so athletic, and in Urdu there's a word called Purtila. He's very Purtila. And I love seeing that. He was quick on his feet. He had a drop chance as well, but that's fine. This is how you gain more confidence. The Glenn Maxwell catch that Saim Ayub took was very akin to the Shadab Khan catch against Virat Kohli against India in that Champions Trophy in 2017. Champions Trophy mentioned, if you guys were keeping a track of that. Indian fans will genuinely find that obnoxious, but here we are again. It was very akin to that catch that Shadab took. And, again, we've spoken to Shadab firsthand. Shadab has said that was a very hard catch to take because the blade is going in somewhere else, your attention is going somewhere else. The ball just climbs on you, gets really big really quickly, and your reflexes have to be really on point to make sure that the ball doesn't fly over. But Saim, not only an incredible contribution for the bat from the bat by him, but on the field as well. You need characters like that in your team if you're going to pull out a win like that. And Saim 100% showed up and made sure that this team went over the mark. I'm just going to pull up some notes here the stats that Pakistan have contributed to. ESPN Cricket Info have a really good page by Sampath. Sampath wrote this really good article on the stats. Just going to read some off for you from off the top of the list. 2002 was the previous series win for Pakistan on Australian soil in any format in international cricket. This is the first instance of Australia losing consecutive men's ODIs by a margin of 8 wickets or more, and Pakistan were the ones that handed that to him. Number of defeats for Australia by balls to spare. This is the third worst with 141 balls in they lost against Pakistan in Adelaide, and then this one in Perth, 139 balls. It is the third worst for Australia of all time. Again, Pakistan handing these bad losses to Australia could not have imagined. 140 Australia's total at Perth is their lowest in men's ODI at home since their 74 all-out against Sri Lanka in 2013 in Brisbane. Again, Pakistan fast bowling has been a gift. Cinema. Just complete wreckage of the opposition. And we haven't seen that Pakistan bowling do that in a very long time. 31.5 overs batted by Australia in Perth are their third fewest in all-out innings in men's ODIs while batting first. Again, crazy stat. 3 instances of Australia being bowled out under 170 in successive ODIs was 163 and 140 against Pakistan in this series. The last time that happened was in 1982 against West Indies in the Benson and Hedges World Series. They were bowled out for 130, 107 in the first 2 finals. While Pakistan did replicate this similar situation in 2002 when they bowled out Australia 167 and 165 in that series where Pakistan won. We discussed that earlier. 16.88, Australia's lowest batting average in the series against Pakistan. It is their second lowest ever in a men's ODI series or tournament. That means that we're losing a wicket every 16 runs. And 26 wickets by Pakistan's pace bowlers in this series against Australia is its joint second most by pacers per team in a 3-match ODI series. West Indies pacers backed 27 in this series against England in 2007, and Australia against New Zealand in 2016, and South Africa against Australia in 2018 also bagged 26 wickets each and those were all pace bowlers. So some really big records were broken. Haris Rauf had a comeback series that, one would imagine him bringing that forth with the amount of talent that he has. A lot of discourse online about this series. Some saying that the third ODI doesn't really count because Australia brought their C, Z, whatever team, whatever insert alphabet here team. And I think that's just a really, really low way of not allowing your team credit. I think Pakistan thoroughly beat them in 2.75 games out of the 3 that were played. I think they just lost the plot in the first end of that game. If they had just bowled a bit fuller, and maybe Rizwan wouldn't have been as emphatic and as emotional and as reactive as he was, maybe we would have actually pulled that win as well. But again, new on the job, debut match for Rizwan as captain. I don't hold anything against him. What does this mean for Pakistan fans? I want to talk about that a little bit before I wrap it up. Again, solo podcast. I was up the entire night last night watching the game. I think I slept at 5:30 a.m. No, I finished the game at 5:30 a.m. I slept at 6:30 a.m. And I went live right after that game actually as well on Instagram. And I talked to a lot of friends and fans of the podcast and fans of Pakistan cricket. Just elation all around. Honestly, the amount of people that came and texted us at Backward Point, it felt like we were celebrating Eid or something. We had so many people reach out and congratulate us, thank us for getting them through the dark times. And honestly, we wanted to reflect that thanks back to you guys because it was a very tough few years as a Pakistan cricket fan. We rarely got wins like this. And the fact that we were, the noise, the outside noise that we shouldn't even be hearing, but it was so loud that it penetrated through these 4 walls that we surround ourselves in here in the podcast. Whatever was going on with the board, whatever was going on with players and internal management. Bashar and I are fortunate enough to be in a place where we get inside news, quote unquote, inside news, just because we have the relationships we've developed within the Pakistan cricket world. And the news that we were getting and the word that came to us was not all positive, and it was getting really, really hard and really taxing on our emotional and mental health to keep continuing. And me and Bashar would have conversations many a time, sitting and discussing what the future of the podcast would be. Because if this is the team we support and they don't give us anything to work with, it was getting hard for us to keep going. A lot of Pakistan fans that we know, a lot of friends that follow Pakistan cricket, had tuned out, had checked out after that Bangladesh series, and especially after that first test lost against England at home. And I don't blame them. And honestly, if I wasn't hosting this podcast, I probably would have checked out as well, as I have many times before. Last time I checked out was, I think, into 2015, and then after the Champions Trophy, that whole run, 2018-19 run, was tough for a lot of Pakistan cricket fans. And then we brought it back when Babar came and took the captaincy, and it was a good few years there. And honestly, the highlight of a lot of Pakistan cricket fans was that 2020 to the 2022 run. And I would actually put in the 2019 World Cup in there too, because that was actually a good campaign that Pakistan ran. Just got a bit unlucky there. And then coming all the way to 6 weeks ago, it was tough to just keep doing that to yourself. And then Pakistan found some solace and in that England win. And then now the ball has been rolling and the tides have been turning, and they suddenly find themselves beating Australia 2-1. The fans, I feel like the ones that I've checked out, the way that Pakistan cricket works, as I've followed it for as many years as I have, they come back. These fans are not just, fair weather fans. These fans have been through a beating, have gone through a beating with whatever the board throws at them and whatever the players throw at them and whatever the teams throw at them. They've gone through a beating and they needed a break. And I feel like this is a really good way to bring them right back, right before a huge ICC event is rolling out and happening in Pakistan. As I speak, it still is. I haven't heard any announcement that it's not, but a lot of goodwill will be taken from this. And if Pakistan managed to score a few more wins against Australia in that T20I series, I think this will be a very successful campaign for Pakistan. Pakistan can go back home with their head held high and their confidence soaring. A lot of the criticism that Pakistan had during that 2022-23 run up to that World Cup and Asia Cup was that Pakistan were just beating teams at home. They beat 2-1. They beat Australia 2-1. They beat England. They beat New Zealand at home. And it was just because, those are the BC teams of those teams. Those were not actually the accurate representation of what Pakistan cricket was. I have my thoughts on that. I will probably share that in another video and another podcast. But this is just unconvincing. This is just convincing. You cannot challenge this victory, this series victory. This was an all-out Australian team coming and just being completely dismantled. And what the Pakistani fans can take from this is that Pakistan, when given the right opportunities, right conditions, and a right avenue for success, will find its way through the darkness. And that is a very positive message that I didn't think that I would be sitting here sleep deprived at 12 a.m. trying to give to people and trying to convey to people. But Pakistan cricket just made that case for themselves. And honestly, it's an amazing feeling to be back here and actually support this team with not a heavy heart, but a full heart. And I know a lot of people will resonate to that sentiment, but it had become really tough to keep sitting here and going through the motions and trying to make sense of all the ridiculousness that was being thrown at, which honestly is still there. I don't want to say that just because we won 2 critical series, that whole aspect of the noise is gone. It's not. It's still there, but it's subdued because the way that the boys are playing, they're trying their best to subdue it. Gillespie, I believe, did say this, to the boys, that whenever you're in the ring, in the ground, within the 22 yards that you depend your life on, don't let the noise affect you. And I feel like that's a great sentiment. That's a great message for the fans as well. When the Pakistan team is playing within the game, within the confines of 100 overs if it's ODIs and 40 overs if it's T20Is, let them cook. Let them play. Don't let the noise affect you. Don't let the outside voices affect you. A lot of the naysayers, a lot of the haters, a lot of the critics that were criticizing Pakistan team for the sake of criticizing, quiet, just gone. These are the moments where we come out and we feel great because we've been through the darkness and we're edging towards the light. Whatever that light may look like at the end, we're there for it. And Pakistan cricket, I think Usman Samiuddin and Ahmed talk about this in Butterfast and other places very well, that Pakistan cricket is quote unquote hal. You know, it's a high that very few get to witness, and the high only comes when you come from a really dark and depressive place. Honestly, the highs are just the highest when that happens, and Pakistan cricket has made sure that their fans are well fed, at least for the next 2 days. And if they find a way to pull off a series win again against Australia in T20Is, I think this will be one of the best overseas Pakistan campaign that Pakistan has seen ever. Now, I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to put words in other people's mouth or give ideas to people and raise expectations and then only for them to crash down, because this again is a young Pakistan cricket team that is playing the T20I series. Um, I'm just saying it will be absolutely spectacular if that happens. Congratulations again to Pakistan cricket fans. I tried to make the most sense of what I could in this whole situation. Um, there's something just beautiful to see when Babar Azam comes out and finishes the second and third ODIs with just the couple of years that he's had. I'm glad that he was the one to do that. I think he deserved that reckoning. He deserved going out and finishing the job for Pakistan. That is something he has been criticized of for many times. But I was glad to see him. Hopefully this turn of events will bring the confidence and focus back to him. And we'll see that carry forward as Pakistan gets into the crunch time of the season. And just what else is there to say? I just want to thank everybody for sticking around, for listening to this podcast, for listening to us for the past 2 years that you have. And if you guys want to help support the podcast, obviously check out the Patreon account. Oh, speaking of Patreon, you can check out the Patreon links and do your best in supporting the podcast. I did go to Patreon and I did ask our Patreon members what they thought about the win. And I'll take a few comments as I always do, because this is a solo podcast, and I did let them know. I told them you guys are going to be my co-hosts, so please put in your thoughts and feelings, and we'll just run through these. Shahrukh Farhan says it's been a tough couple of years for Pakistan cricket and the fans. I'm not sure how much this series win is going to change things, but honestly, who cares? Just seeing those boys enjoying their game, dominating, and being genuinely happy means so much. Actual tears of joy when Babar hit those final runs. Shahrukh, it felt like you were just echoing whatever the sentiments I felt just 2 minutes ago. Very well timed, Shahrukh. And yeah, I totally agree. That sentiment rings loud and clear for me as well. It's been a hard couple of years for Pakistan cricket fans, and the fact that we were able to sit here and witness this. Kudos to everybody involved. A Masood 34 says, one thing I want to point out is the fact that between every over, all the fast bowling unit was constantly in communication with each other. This was reminiscent of the 2022 and 2021 ICC events, where our big three were constantly strategizing and never letting the opposite team get the upper hand. Congrats to everyone. Also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Chris Martin from Coldplay attended the first Australia versus ODI. Thought I'd mention it since we're all big fans here. Definitely saw that. And I think I tweeted from Backward Point's account that I wish Chris Martin saw the second and third ODIs, because I feel like that was an honest representation of where Pakistan was. But yeah, worlds colliding. Co-play there with Pakistan cricket. There was also a test match, I believe in 2016, where Ed Sheeran showed up for a Pakistan-England match as well. So lovely to see pop culture and Pakistan cricket mixing together. Zanelli says, I can't remember the last time I saw Pakistan play with this much intensity and passion. There seems to be a culture shift that's happened in the team. Both victories ended with boundaries where singles would have sufficed, but that indicates a shift in mindset. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. Zan, I think you're onto something. I think it was a release. The fact that both of those innings were ended by Babar Azam, and it felt like a release on his part and a big sigh that the team was letting out through Babar Azam. So it definitely was a statement, and what a thrilling statement it was. Razia says, what a thrilling series. The Pacers were on fire, the fielders were pulling off incredible catches, and a cherry on top, Simon, ABD, and Babar were all in good form. I still can't believe it. It was perfect. Razia, I totally agree with you. I think you're echoing a lot of our sentiments as well. Damour says, let's be honest. No one expected us to win a game this series, especially us Pakistanis. So let's just appreciate that instead of being cynical. Pakistan definitely played the better cricket in this series. Totally agree. I think Pakistan played 2.75 times better than Australia did in this 3-match series. I know people will say the final game, Australian big players were missing, but bowling any Australian team off at 140 at home in an ODI is a genuine success. again, retweet, totally agree. Pakistan did absolutely nothing wrong with the ball, and any batting lineup would have suggested, would have struggled. It was a genuine high quality fast bowling. But people saying this win isn't sustainable should just hold off. The important thing is we won. And I think that's the the sentiment that I also want to echo here, Tamu. I think the fact that Pakistan were able to pull off this win with the noise that is as loud as it is itself a miracle. So we should celebrate that. Amar Amnani says, I'm sorry, but this is, but is this sustained win? Oh, this is what I think Tamu was replying to. Was it a fluke? Is it a sustained win? He's asking because we did drop catches and we did get chances. Australia does have pitches that favor us, and of course also them, but Australia was missing Marsh and Head. I'm very happy for us, but I don't want us to oversell this. I think Amar is just being cautious, and I wouldn't say he's being cynical, but he's just being cautiously optimistic, and I respect that, Amar. I think that there's a place for your points of view as well. I may not 100% agree with it, but I see where you're coming from, and it is totally valid. Don't think that, don't get bullied out into thinking that people might be overselling it. I'm here sitting and overselling it because of how it made me feel. So most of this is just going off of emotion and feeling as opposed to reality. You are right. We got a lot of chances. I think time was dropped 2 or 3 times in the course of this series. Twice by Zampa, I believe. And Australia rarely drops sitters the way that they have in this series. So a lot of things in favor, but luck only favors the brave. And I do believe that Pakistan were the brave ones here. And they actually tried to pull something off that hadn't been done in over 22 years. So kudos to them. Sanan saying, literally over the moon right now. Shaheen bowling, showing glimpses of brilliance once again after a roughish patch. Haris being our key wicket taker in the middle order. And Babar and Rizwan finishing off games. Man, did I miss this. Was a little against Simon ABD partnership initially, but they've proven me and probably many others wrong with those last 2 games. And that little moment between Babar and Shaheen when Shaheen hurt his thumb, that hit a different part of my heart. Honestly, Dr. Babar, I'm in for it. I totally am in favor of that. Ali Khan says, there is a synergy and happiness in this team that has returned. Something I hadn't seen since the T20 World Cup in 2022. What do you put it down to? It's absolutely great to see. I think you're very right. I think a lot of people have mentioned this, Ali, in the past couple of days, that there seems to be a unifying feeling among the 11 that are playing. Now, this may be because of who the captain is. But Rizwan has many times come out and said that I'm not the captain. There's 11 captains in this team. I'm just the face of this captaincy. And I genuinely think he believes it. He has star players like Shaheen, who has been a captain, and Babar, who is a captain as well. So he has those guys and he has the egos to balance. And I think just because of the person that Rizwan is, he is balancing that really well and is really bringing these people together, which is great to see. I hope this synergy does continue. I think it's overdue, and it should stay for a long time. Yusuf says, does Fakhar Zaman still have a place in this team given how good our openers did? I think Fakhar Zaman always has a place in the Pakistan cricket team, just the class act that he is. Saim definitely is the future of Pakistan cricket. It's not only me saying this. I think Rehan Ul Haq also has a podcast called Sporting Myths, and he's mentioned that similar sentiment as well. But you should extract as much as you can from Fakhar, for sure. I think he definitely goes into the squad. And if you don't, if you want, you can use him as a backup opener, or if you want to go full throttle, just throw him in the mix and see what happens. Fakhar Zaman makes it a Pakistan 11 all the time. How that happens is up to debate. Maybe Abdullah drops, maybe Saim drops. Maybe you go with 2 lefties like Saim and Fakhar in the top 2. I don't know the complete answer to that, Yusuf, honestly, but the answer, bottom line, is that Fakhar always makes a Pakistan cricket team, especially if it's white ball. Yusuf Shamsi says, did not expect this from Pakistan. Haris Raufs shows once again why he is key in white ball cricket. Shaheen looked very good in the last game. Team looked united. Rizwan is fantastic and can't praise him enough. Well done, boys. I think that's the perfect sentiment to end, Yusuf. I totally agree with you. I'm just happy that there's a lot of positive engagement going on in the Patreon. The past couple of years were bleak, where Patreon members were just sad, and it was a point of therapy for a lot of our friends in the Patreon and the Discord as well, where I was extremely live last night. It was amazing. The meme quality on the Discord is next level. If you guys want to check that out, obviously links in the description. But thank you everybody for participating in this exercise and just helping me out here as I do the solo podcast. Congratulations again to everybody. I've said this a few times on this podcast. Still doesn't feel real, but it is real. I have seen the Pakistan versus Australia second and third ODI highlights maybe 8 to 10 times now. I've seen it 4 times with my son, who is 1, so he doesn't really understand what's going on, which is great for me because I can just repeat and show it to him as many times as I want without looking like a psychopath. And I've also forced my wife to see it a couple of times, which was a difficult task, but she's managed to go through the highlights, especially the short ones, the 8-minute ones on YouTube. I urge you guys, if you guys have spouses or partners, push this agenda on them. No harm in doing that. Push this agenda on your partner. Make them watch the highlights. Tell them how important this win is. Show them the importance and the magnitude of what Rizwan and the 11 were able to do. And do not go cynical into the night. Optimism is in the air. Pakistan is currently turning a leaf. Support them. If they do go down 3-0 in the T20I series, it is not the end of the world. This is a tough series. Just because Pakistan are winning and making it look easy does not mean it is easy. Go easy on yourselves. I've said this many times before during the 2024 T20 World Cup as well. Your mental health over everything. If it's getting too much for you, if it's getting overwhelming for you, take a break. But right now is a really good time to come back if you're on a break. So enjoy this moment. Take the high. Don't forget where we just came from. Okay, it's very easy for Pakistan cricket to go back into that hole, into that dip. But as it stands right now, Pakistan have beaten Australia 2-1 after 22 years in an ODI series with 3 matches left to go. We're going to talk about a lot of other things. Definitely, I think a lot of people are missing the elephant in the room, and I'm genuinely trying not to talk about it. But there's a lot of things that are up in the air that when they become concrete, I will come out and talk about it. Even if I have to do a solo podcast like I did today, even if it has to be a 15 to 20 minute rant on the current state of international cricket, I will do that. But as it stands right now, we just don't have enough information. I would love to see whatever is play out to the maximum ability. The BGT is also happening, as was many a times reminded during the course of this ODI series, that the Border Gavaskar series against Australia and India is on the verge. We will be covering that to the best of our abilities as well when it comes down to it at the end of the month and starting of December. Hopefully, Bashar will be back by then as well, inshallah. And we'll be able to go deep into that well. I think I've said goodbye like 4 times. I just don't want to leave, honestly, but I have to be forced out. This is why I miss Bashar. He would counterbalance me really well. He'd show me the eyes off camera and be like, cut it out. I'm just having a great time. I'm going to go watch this highlights 3 or 4 more times and enjoy every single moment of it. I hope you guys do as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for supporting Backward Point. And once again, take care of yourselves. Cheers.